Shalom and welcome back to Israel with Aline, and welcome to our channel's special anniversary episode. Israel with Aline is celebrating 5 years, and that's why we came to where it all began, here at the Western Wall. And today we're going to tell you exclusive information about a secret and illegal archaeological excavation that was carried out inside the Temple Mount, searching for the Ark of the Covenant. We're going to find out everything they did, see the tunnels they used to enter, and discover whether or not they actually found the Ark of the Covenant. So if you're ready, let's get started. The history of this place begins 3,800 years ago, when all of this was just an open field. And what you could see here was a hill called Mount Moriah. And the one who comes to this place is our patriarch Abraham. And he comes here to sacrifice his son Isaac. And because of the importance of these events, this is exactly the land that King David buys for his son, King Solomon, to build here the great Temple of Solomon. And this glorious temple was destroyed in the year 586 before Christ by the Babylonian soldiers and Nebuchadnezzar. But right before they destroyed it, they went in to loot the great treasures of the temple, among them the Ark of the Covenant. And the Bible itself tells us that these treasures were taken to Babylon. The Babylonians broke into pieces the bronze pillars that were in the house of the Lord, as well as the stands and the bronze sea that were in the house of the Lord, and took all the bronze to Babylon. They also took the pots, the shovels, the snuffers, the basins, the incense containers, and all the bronze utensils used in the service. The chief of the guard also took the cups, the fire pans, the basins, the pots, the lampstands, the incense containers, everything that was made of gold or silver. Did you hear this Bible verse clearly? In it, there is a very clear list of the treasures taken to Babylon, but at no point in that list is the Ark of the Covenant mentioned. And that's exactly where this great mystery begins. Where did the Ark go? Did the Babylonians manage to get their hands on it? Or, as many believe, maybe it never even left Jerusalem. Let's now take a closer look at this mystery. There are many theories about the whereabouts of the Ark of the Covenant. There are theories that talk about Axum in Ethiopia, about Mount Nebo in Jordan, and even in England. But the most accepted theory here in Israel is that in reality the Ark never left the city, and that it is here behind the Western Wall. But did you know that this isn't the only Western Wall? Yes, there isn't just one wall. In fact, there are 4. Let's dive into this story together now and see its connection to the Ark. Come with me. On the ruins of Solomon's temple, the second temple of Jerusalem was built exactly in the same place. But inside this second temple, the Ark was not there because it had already disappeared. And after a few more centuries, the second temple was also destroyed. And what we see right here behind us are the remains of this second temple. And what is behind these walls is actually Mount Moriah, but also underground chambers. This wall that we see here is the beginning of the Wailing Wall, also known as the Western Wall, and the other side is the Southern Wall. So now let's get closer to the Wailing Wall. It is the most important among the four walls because it is the closest to the original place of the Holy of Holies where the Ark was kept. And it was almost half a kilometer long. And from this half kilometer, there are 4 different areas that are still visible today. The first one is the one we saw before, which is about 60 meters long and is also the most well known. And the second one is here, right next to us. More than 600 years after the destruction of the Second Temple of Jerusalem, for the first time, this region is conquered by the Muslims, and they go up to the Temple Mount, exactly at the peak of Mount Moriah, the place where the Ark was. And on it, they build the Dome of the Rock, the Golden Dome. And since then, they have forbidden entry into the Temple Mount. And when I say inside, I mean the underground chambers and all the area behind the Western Wall. And because of that, for centuries, no one was allowed to enter this place. Until Walter Gilvelius, who is a Bible scholar of Scandinavian origin, believed he had deciphered the location where the Ark of the Covenant was hidden. And where was it? In a tunnel here in Jerusalem, underneath the Temple Mount. And he presents his studies to Parker. Montego Parker was a British Army officer and a lover of archaeology. They join forces and prepare an expedition to excavate in the Holy Land. And they set off, but not to Jerusalem, instead to Istanbul, because at that time, Jerusalem and the entire region belonged to the Turkish Ottoman Empire. There they meet with some officials, and by paying the equivalent of more than $80,000, they obtain a special permit to excavate in some areas of Jerusalem, but not all. And part of this agreement they made is that 50%, half of everything that would be found, all the treasures, including Solomon's treasures, would be given to those same officials. And with this paper, this partial authorization, they board a ship heading toward the coast of Israel. They dock in 1909 at the port of Jaffa. However, they are prevented from getting off the ship because at that moment a plague, an epidemic, had just started. There was bubonic plague running rampant here, so they had to wait inside the ship until the plague passed. And then finally they managed to get off and come to Jerusalem to start getting their hands dirty and excavating the underground areas. We saw the Western Wall from its beginning. We saw the traditional part, which is the most famous, and now we're going to go through these glass doors and enter the underground areas from there. Juveio based his work on ancient writings, and he believed that the Ark is inside the Temple Mount. However, he didn't have authorization to excavate directly from the top of the mount downwards. But he knew about the existence of underground tunnels, and he believed that by going up through these tunnels, he would reach Solomon's treasure directly. And we are also walking through tunnels. And you'll see that soon we'll meet up again with the original Wailing Wall. What I really want to show you is here. Come with me. We can see that the wall continues and suddenly there are recessed and closed off sections. Look here, all of this here. If we look up, we can see that this here is an entrance arch and that it is closed off with concrete. This has been closed for just a few years. And all of this here used to be one of the entrances to the tunnels that gave access to the Temple Mount. And next to this entrance, we can see some people praying in the background. That spot is the closest we can get to the Holy of Holies, where we are going to pass now. We will be only 70 meters from the peak of Mount Moriah, the exact place where the Ark of the Covenant was kept. Come with me. We saw earlier entrances to the Temple Mount, and besides those, there are several others. Some provided access to the top of the Temple Mount, to the esplanade, and other tunnels led to the underground areas. The excavation by Parker and Juvelhos through the tunnels was supposed to be kept secret, confidential. However, that was an almost impossible mission, since it was the largest excavation ever carried out in Jerusalem up to that point. Almost 200 workers dug passages averaging about 1.25 meters in height to provide access into the tunnels that had been buried for centuries. And they used mechanical pumps to supply air to the underground spaces. And listen to the account of one of the archaeologists who was with them. We lived underground almost the entire time there was daylight. The work continued into the night without stopping, by torchlight and to the sound of songs sung by the workers. The tunnels were dark and mysterious and seemed to stretch endlessly into the depths of the rock. And they spent months digging and found neither gold nor silver, much less the Ark. And then winter came and the weather became very cold and damp. And the workers even went on strike. And that's why they left Israel empty-handed. But their story isn't over yet, because they came back the following summer with even more reinforcements. They brought the chief engineer of the London subway system, literally a tunnel system specialist. And they worked until the following winter, but without better luck. They found many objects from biblical times, but not Solomon's treasure. And was it really a treasure? They estimated that the Ark, along with several trays, bowls, and other precious gold and silver objects, would be worth the equivalent of more than $6 billion today. We kept walking, and suddenly we arrived at a floor with gigantic stones. This is the original floor of Jerusalem from over 2,000 years ago. What happens is that the street is on a slope. So we walked and walked until we found this original street. But what's even more surprising is what's behind me. This here is none other than the slope of Mount Moriah. If the peak is inside there, the slope of the mountain keeps going down. So this is the side of the original rocks. And what the builders were doing was cutting the slope of the mountain to work to create the same appearance as the rest of the western wall. So if we keep going in here, we literally reach the peak of Mount Moriah in this direction. And something very interesting that you can clearly see here is this entrance. We can see what looks like an entrance to the Jerusalem temple complex. What we're going to do now is go up, leave the depths of these tunnels, go into the light, and find out what this expedition really found when they entered the area that's forbidden to be excavated. Let's go. We can even see here this sign that says, "The little wailing wall, come with me." See how special this is. We have reunited with the Wailing Wall. This is the fourth and last part that I told you about. And this part has some special things. First, here men and women are allowed to pray together. And it's a little known part, which is why it's almost always empty. So when we come here, it's like having a very important person section of the Wailing Wall just for us. And here we continue with Parker's story. We are now in the spring of 1911. And that permit he had paid so much for to be able to excavate in Jerusalem was about to expire. He only had a few months left to finish. And up until that moment, he hadn't found anything at all related to King Solomon's treasures, much less the Ark. And because of that, he started to get really desperate and came up with a very bold plan. He goes to the chief, a sheikh who controlled the Temple Mount, and then gives him a bribe. And he asks to excavate not only underneath, but also on top of the Temple Mount, entering directly. And this sheikh then arranges for the Temple Mount guards to go attend a Muslim festival outside the city. So Parker knew that he had the Temple Mount all to himself and that no one would stop him from entering the underground. And for 9 nights, Parker and his men worked in several places on the platform, but without success. And then came the 10th and final night. Final, because the next day the guards were coming back from the festival. And it had to be at night because it was completely secret. And now Parker was literally in the last hours he had to dig, and he was on top of the Temple Mount. And he decides to do something really, you could say, radical, extreme. He goes inside the dome of the rock. He sees the rock, the peak of Mount Moriah. You can still see to this day the exact spot, the mark of the place where the Ark used to be. And then he starts digging. The thing is, all that work they were doing on the stone starts making noise, and the Muslim houses around here start to hear some activity of stones, of pickaxes inside the Temple Mount at night, and they realize that there was something at the very least suspicious going on. And the people start leaving their houses and heading toward the Temple Mount. And then Parker starts to risk his life because the people wanted to catch him and end his life right then and there. And then Parker literally has to run away to save his life. He manages to run, catch a train to Jaffa, and get on a ship to leave the land of Israel. And he leaves empty-handed. He is the person who got closest to the location of the Ark of the Covenant since it disappeared 2,600 years ago. However, at the same time that he got so close, he wasn't able to enter the place to see if the Ark of the Covenant is really there or not. And that's why, to this day, the people of Jerusalem and Israel believe that the most likely location of the Ark of the Covenant is right behind these stones, in these secret tunnels, in these underground chambers. And the mystery continues. It could be that the Ark is just a few meters away from us, but all we can really do is dream that one day archaeologists might once again enter this place and maybe manage to prove what Parker couldn't. And in this very place where I recorded the first video for the channel 5 years ago, I'm so happy to be able to come back. And I really just have to thank all of you for all the support, all the affection, all the messages, all the comments, because everything that's happened in my life over these last 5 years is truly unbelievable. And it's really thanks to you. I also want to give a special thanks to Modi, who's here behind the camera, who's been with me from the beginning over these 5 years, to my dad, my mom, and to everyone who supported us in this project from the very start. So I wish all of you a great day, a blessed Sunday, and I'll see you next week.